Before we get into this episode, I just want to issue a trigger warning for death, suicide, and potential medical trauma relating to those topics. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and we're on to the show.
Put on your headphones, get ready for a ride. These two crazy guys are gonna blow your mind. You better stop and listen, 'cause it's time for Good Sports Podcast, where everything is gonna be alright. Welcome to Good Sports Podcast. Today is going to be a doozy. It might be a bummer. I want everyone to hold onto their frickin' seats for this action-packed episode that we have coming up today. Lots of developments.
I think the fact that it's getting dark around 5 p.m. is starting to do things to us.
Oh, it's getting dark at 5 p.m. for you? For us, it's 4. So that's awesome. I wish it got dark at 5 p.m. The sun starts setting at 4 p.m., so that's fun. Do they have daylight savings time in France?
Yes, they do. It happened like a week before it did in the U.S.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
I don't have legs to stand on complaining about the weather here.
No.
It's basically 60s all the time and just so wet.
Ew.
It rains all the time, very hard, very high humidity, and inside is always like 10 degrees colder than outside. So it's 65 degrees outside, but I'm having to wear 2 pairs of socks at school.
Weird.
Yeah.
Here, it's like 30 to 40. It's been 30 a couple days. It's been pretty consistently in the 40s during the day, which isn't bad. It rained last night, but it hasn't been crazy. Also, I just realized we didn't introduce ourselves at all. I really hope people are not listening to this as their first episode. That'd be weird. Go back and start from the beginning. This is crazy. My name is Hayes. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a software engineer who's extremely underpaid and also underworked. So I guess it kind of works out. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. Let me just give you my address. And who are you, friend?
I'm M. I currently live in France. I'm a math master student, and my social security number is...
Okay, honestly, now that we've fully doxed ourselves, I feel like we have a very strong parasocial relationship with our listeners. Because, we're trusting y'all not to send me mail. We're trusting y'all not to show up at my house. We're trusting y'all not to open a credit card in M's name.
Yeah.
Which you totally could. So that's a pretty big level of trust there. With great power comes great responsibility.
I mean, I trust random people on the internet. If they made it this far, all 3 minutes in the episode, I mean, really, what's the worst they can do?
Yeah, and earlier when I said go back and listen from the beginning, there's no way they would just keep listening. That would be so horrible of them. So I know that they've been with us this whole time and listened to every single episode from top to bottom.
When you said go back to the beginning, I assumed that was instructions for this episode, so they listen to those 2 minutes, you tell them to go back to the beginning, they go back to the beginning of the podcast, they make it back there, and then, they're good rule-following individuals, so they go back again. And so actually no one's ever going to hear this.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. So we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
Today, I have a lot to share. I have a harrowing journey through the American healthcare system. I have friendships being tested, being lost, drama in my life, total bullshit in my life, bitching, complaining, whining, kvetching. So I do want to get to all of that, but I also want to hear what's going on with you, because I heard that you are having some French problems and that your passport's going to be revoked and you're not going to be allowed in the United States anymore, and they're going to blast you into the moon.
Well, the blasting into the moon is true. The other stuff is not true.
Okay.
The French stuff first, because it's less interesting.
Okay, yeah. Let's start our podcast with the less interesting stuff. Awesome.
Audience retention. If you want to hear the more interesting stuff, stick around. So I have an hour-long presentation that I have to give by myself on Tuesday about analytic continuation of holomorphic functions.
Okay. Ew.
Yeah, I've written out my entire plan. It's like 6 pages, and...
Okay. Talk really slow.
I do. It's not my native language.
I think that'll actually work in your favor, because people often plan out an hour presentation and then they talk so fast and it's like 30 minutes. But you don't have that problem.
No one who's gone yet has been under an hour 30.
What?
Yeah.
90 minutes?
Someone went for 3 hours.
How is that allowed? You just had to sit there for 3 hours?
No, it's a 2-hour class. So they just went for all of one class and then half of the next one.
What the fuck? I feel like as a teacher, I would be like, come on, man.
So the problem is, so the way this class works, it's a seminar class. So we've all been given a PDF of a book, which has definitely been legally obtained and not just been scanned by the professor and uploaded to the course website. And so everyone's been assigned a chapter. So if someone doesn't make it through their presentation, then all of the other presentations won't make any sense.
And your teacher is doing this so he can have you guys teach each other. So then what is he there for?
So the point of the class is for us to be giving presentations. The class is just called seminar.
Oh, okay. See, that's so interesting because in the United States, a seminar class means something totally different.
Isn't a seminar class like a discussion? I've never taken one.
Yes. From my experience here, at least in undergrad, I don't know. That's why I was confused why you said seminar, because here a seminar class means that you all do the reading or the homework or learn the material beforehand, and then you come and you spend the whole time discussing it in a group together. And then also part of it is that there's always one guy, it's always a guy, and he takes devil's advocate and argues with everyone and monopolizes everyone's time. So that's what a seminar class is in my experience. I've never done a presentation in a seminar class.
Here, from what I've talked to other people about, it seems like the definition is everyone's giving a presentation and the whole class is just presentations.
Wow, that sounds like my absolute nightmare.
So the thing is, most of the people in this program want to be teachers, so the presentations are good and interesting and well done.
Okay.
Except mine.
Well, okay, maybe the content will be good. It's just the delivery. And are you planning on becoming a professor in French?
If I were to become a professor, I'd become a research professor. I don't want a full teaching load. But given the way the US is going, my aspiration is to stay here.
You never thought about Canada? It's literally right there. What's wrong with Canada? It's not good enough for you?
It's not that I'm too good for Canada. Schools in Canada are more expensive than schools here.
Even for coming out of the country.
Yeah. Speaking of Canada, I recently read this thing about a disabled person who went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Oh, would you like to get euthanized? That sounds pretty terrible."
Wow. Honestly, I wish someone would offer me euthanization. Not that I would take it, but just to have the option. I mean, it is pretty fucked up to be like, oh, you're disabled, you must want to die. I would like to fact check that, though, because there's a lot of propaganda out there about the Canadian healthcare system.
I'm going to fact check it now.
I've heard that as well. But I've also heard that they only reserve euthanasia for people who are in very, very, very painful and very limiting, are basically just going to be tortured for the rest of their life. And someone in that position might want the option to not continue living. And I honestly get that. You should go to Snopes. Remember Snopes?
I do remember Snopes.
We as a society need to go back to Snopes.
Okay. In 2022, the underlying medical conditions that led someone to be euthanized through this program include cancer, 63%, cardiovascular conditions, 18%, other 14.9%, can be frailty, diabetes, chronic pain, or autoimmune.
Diabetes.
Respiratory, 13.2%, and neurological conditions, 12.6%. 75% of recipients received palliative care, and of recipients who required but did not receive palliative care, 85% had access, a level similar to the past 3 years. I'm just reading from Wikipedia. In 2021, the United Nations Human Rights Council Special Reporter on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities criticized this bill and assisted death in general for undermining both disabled people's equal right to live and their ability to autonomously access support and continue living.
Well, are they forcing them to die, or are they just giving them the option?
Impact on the impoverished, handling of specific cases. In addition to broader criticisms of MAID, the handling of certain cases has been subject to media coverage. These include, in 2017, a mother of a young woman with cerebral palsy was told that not applying for MAID was selfish. Her daughter was in the room when the conversation took place and described the incident as traumatic.
Yeah.
In 2019, Alan Nichols successfully applied for MAID while being hospitalized for suicidal ideation. The reason given on his application was hearing loss.
I mean, this kind of brings up a wider discussion of when is feeling suicidal something that society will accept as valid and not mental illness.
One of the other things that was criticized about the policy is there's apparently this really famous article that basically said that they view MAID as a way to deal with poverty.
Wow. I mean, that's extremely fucked up. I'm glad we don't have this euthanasia in the United States because it would probably run rampant.
Correct.
And it does bring up the problem. From my perspective, I think it reflects a severe provider shortage,
Correct.
which is not just affecting Canada. It's also affecting the United States. It's also affecting other countries.
Oh, yeah.
And there's also just not enough support. There's not enough knowledge to support people who are chronically ill or who have autoimmune conditions or just who are disabled in general. And I think that if the United States had euthanasia, I think it'd be just as bad, if not worse, as Canada. And here, it's like, well, you get to die of slow abuse, trauma, and neglect through the medical system instead of a quick, painless death through euthanasia. So it's like, well, which one would you rather choose? To just slowly die as the medical system refuses to treat you, refuses to give you any treatment, or to be offered the choice of euthanasia. And I think this is kind of a controversial opinion, but I do believe if someone, I think, has reached the point where they are considering euthanasia, I think obviously mental health care should be offered to them. But I also think, hey, it's your body, it's your life, and if that's what you want to pursue. But I also think it shouldn't be just suggested to people because society doesn't want to deal with them. That seems to be the issue.
Exactly. I agree that people have a right to self-determination, even in extreme cases, especially in extreme cases, I'll say also.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I also believe that the idea of going to the doctor and the doctor being like, have you considered dying, when that in fact is not something you've considered, is...
And it sounds like they're prescribing dying for things that are extremely treatable, that we have a lot of successful treatments for, like diabetes.
I also think that to a certain extent, it comes back to the idea of which lives do we consider worthy of living, right? Like, not to talk about Tumblr, but there was a post that went around Tumblr a while ago, and it was like, spin this wheel, and this part of your body or brain gets randomly removed. What is your life like afterward?
Yeah.
And so some of it was like your whole brain, and it's like, well, you die. But some of it was like a leg or a kidney or part of your brain. And there were people in the tags who were like, if this happened to me, I would kill myself.
Damn.
There are things that people just like live with, like missing a leg or missing, I think it's like the temporal lobe is the part of your brain you can lose.
Wow, that's fucked up.
I completely agree with you, but I also think when people become disabled, there's an adjustment period of like what life is going to look like now. And how do you accept what that is?
True. And speaking as a physically disabled person, I think that there's not enough support for people going through that adjustment period. And there's also not enough medical advancement and medical support for a lot of people to have that acceptance. Like, for example, I think the acceptance is delayed a lot by people being given false hope, by people not receiving proper medical care, by people not receiving proper diagnosis. I mean, the average time for an autoimmune condition to get diagnosed, I believe, is between 3 and 5 years. So that's 3 to 5 years that you're living with potentially a disability without a cause. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So it is really hard to accept that I'm just disabled for my life, even though that's kind of what it's looking like at this point. But it's hard to accept that when you don't have proper medical care, when you don't have a real cause, when you don't have effective treatments, and you're basically just treated as if your life has no value. And disabled people are treated as if their life has no value. So yeah, it's hard to come to terms with you've made a transition from your life being valuable to your life no longer mattering to society.
Especially, I think, for different people to different extents, depending how much they have personally internalized the societal idea of disabled people not mattering. They might not phrase it in those words.
Yes.
Especially one of the things people don't like to think about is that the best case scenario for all of us is to, at some point, become disabled. If you make it to 75, you will be disabled, and the only other option is to die before then.
Yep. Which, like, is that really what you want? But I don't think there's a realistic view that's given to people growing up, or just in general, or to young people. And I'm not saying we should go to children and say, well, you're going to be disabled and in pain for life. But I do think as you're coming of age, it should be made extremely and explicitly clear to people, you will become disabled at some point in your life. You will have pain at some point in your life. That is normal. That is part of being a human being, because the way that I think it's viewed, like my great grandfather, I did know him as a child, and I don't know, I was maybe like about 7 or 8, and I was asking like, why can't he go down to the basement anymore? Because he used to tell us, me and my cousins, oh, there's a dragon in the basement and he's my friend, and he had this whole lore about the dragon who lived in the basement. It was really adorable. And I was at his house and he was like, well, I can't go get into the basement. And I was asking my mom, why can't he go into the basement anymore? And my mom was like, oh, well, his knees hurt. And I was like, oh, okay, well, when will they be better so he can go visit the dragon? And she was like, they're never going to get better. They just are going to hurt all the time. And as a 7-year-old child, I said, well, why doesn't he just die then?
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't he just kill himself?
Yeah.
As a child, I was like, I perceived it as so abnormal and so unbearable to be in chronic pain that I just thought my great grandfather should just kill himself rather than have knee pain. I didn't get that view from nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not something I came out of the womb believing.
Exactly.
People are taught that disabled people's lives are not worth living. And I think that if there was a little more support in our fucking society, it would be more worth living.
So my partner is in school for speech therapy, but it's broader than that, the field in Germany. And one of the things he learned about, it's called locked-in syndrome. And basically you can only move your eyes up and down and no other part of your body can move.
Whoa.
It's very interesting as a microcosm for the way that society views disability, because there's machines that can like interpret your eye movements so that you can communicate.
Like Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, he had a different condition, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he had ALS, but at the end, he could only move his eyes, I believe, up and down. So, yeah, it was similar.
So, first thing, the average time to get diagnosed with it is years.
What?
So, it's usually what happens is doctors will be like, oh, this person is just paralyzed and we don't know anything about neurological function. They send the person home, and then it's time with the family, and then the family is taking care of this person and noticing that they react to things and stuff like that.
They have awareness.
Exactly. And then after they get accessibility features and get accommodated, then they've done studies where like the average scale of satisfaction that people have with their lives is almost entirely dependent on how accessible their life is, because nothing has happened to their brain. It's only a communication and mobility disorder. So that's a very different life. But compared to people who are like maximally accommodated, there's not really a difference in life satisfaction compared to the general population.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is actually amazing to hear. It really puts it into perspective. And I think another part of this, and this might be a very American perspective, but I also think something I hear from people when talking about disability is, oh, well, I would want to kill myself because I couldn't be dependent on my family, or I would feel so bad having my family take care of me. It's like, what? And I feel bad. I don't say that in a judgmental way, because I've had feelings of I'm a burden, I'm taking up too many resources of my family. But it's like, isn't that why humans have these strong social bonds and social networks, so we can take care of each other? I think like family should take care of each other. It's part of being a family. It's part of being an interdependent society. It's part of being part of a community, which is something that I think there's still a lot of individualism of, well, if I can't support myself, if I can't be independent 100%, well, life's just not worth living.
I agree. I want to generalize that not just to a disability case, but I think that a lot of people want their friends to ask things of them.
Yes.
So like, I love doing things for my friends, but I'm only just being able to like begin to ask my friends to do things for me. Yeah. If someone's getting overwhelmed in a certain environment, I very much want them to be able to ask, like, hey, can we leave?
Yes.
But also, I struggle saying, hey, I'm overwhelmed in this environment. can we go? And I think part of how to break through that a little bit is to become okay with asking people for things. Because I want to be asked for things. I like doing things for people.
Yes, no, and especially when it comes to, and there's certain types of support that I can't provide physically. However, when my friends come to me for emotional support, I feel honored, I feel trusted, I feel euphoric that I can be confided in. I feel like, wow, I'm becoming closer to this person and we're building a bond and they value my advice enough to ask for it. That's amazing. Or they see my support as valuable enough to depend on me. And I think being depended on is like the cure for depression. Sorry, this is but it kind of is. Like, being responsible for others, truly being depended on, being trusted in by others. It's just not that you can't be depressed, but I do think it helps a lot with mental health to feel like you are a needed part of a community.
Correct.
Not just to be depending on others. I don't think that has the same effect. I think what really has an effect is others depending on you and trusting you.
Going back to like talking about old people, that's one of the things that's advised if you're going to be like interacting heavily with old people is make sure that they feel like they're also helping you.
Yeah.
Because they're full adults. They have gone through a career. If they're your grandparents, raising your kids, raising you, and now they're being looked after. And not just find ways that they can feel helpful, find ways they can genuinely help you.
That they can actually help you. And they probably can.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when it comes to helping with your kids, helping with younger kids. There's like so many things that they can legitimately do. And I really resent how older people are treated like children, especially in caring situations. And not necessarily by their family, but in like a nursing home or something. And this actually reminds me, I was just having a discussion with my domestic partner, and her dad's getting older. I mean, he's not that old, but we're in a long-term committed relationship, and he's going to need care. And I was kind of like, well, would he come up here? And would he live with us? And what would that look like? And she's like, wow, I just never thought of him living with us. And I'm like, I assumed he would live with us. I mean, he, like I just assumed that would happen at some point. And I would love for that to happen because he's a very solitary person. And I do worry about that cognitively because there have been so many studies that especially as you get older, if you don't have those social connections, you can end up declining pretty quickly into dementia. There's just such a higher risk for dementia if you don't have enough social connection.
It also becomes harder to maintain. And this is really sad. My grandma, she's 83, 84, and almost everyone she met before she was like 65 is now dead.
Yeah.
And functionally, the only person that is like a peer to her that she knew when she was younger than 60 is her sister-in-law, who is, and I cannot stress this enough, someone she hates. Like, she has a center and she knows people who speak Russian who are her age and stuff like that.
Sure. They don't have history, though.
Exactly. They haven't hated each other for 40 years.
Whether or not it's hate or love for 40 years, that's still 40 years of fucking history. And this is why I feel so, and I've brought this up before, I'm a broken record, but this is why we need intergenerational friendships, where you are truly a peer with someone of a different generation, a different age than you. If your only friends, if your only connections are with people who are your age, eventually all those people will be dead. And a lot of older people, their peers have passed away. And when I'm saying peer, I mean someone who is on the same level. There's not like a mismatched power imbalance. They have equal footing friendship is what I would say as a peer. And I don't think that's just based on age. So I think it's possible for people to have intergenerational peers. And I think we need to be fostering that as part of being in community, because something that really irks me about a lot of quote unquote community building that I'm seeing is it's only focused on people from the ages of 20 to 35. It may be even from 20 to 30, but I do think people in their 30s are building community and are included. But I think that as you get into middle age and older, there's just less of a desire to be friends with people of different ages.
I think that a lot of people in, I'll say, early middle age are forming community around their kids. So they're making friends with the parents of the kids that their kid is friends with.
Yes, which will probably be, again, people who are in the same age range.
Yes.
And I think that's the problem. I think
Yes, I agree.
we need to be forming connections with people who have different social experiences than us, not
I
just
agree.
people who are exactly the same as us. And I crave social experiences with my elders, and I don't have access to that. I crave social experiences with people who are younger than me, and I feel like I do have that, but I don't have any kids in my life, and that's sad. I wish I had kids in my life, but unfortunately, unless I have children or unless I devote my life to being a child care worker, there's probably not a situation where I'm going to be in contact with kids or ever talk to them.
Yeah.
And that's just, to me, kind of weird that our society is set up this way. I feel so isolated when I can only interact with people in my own age group, you know?
Yeah. Something that I have talked a lot about with my partner is like, he wants kids. I don't know if I can be one of two people looking after a kid.
Yeah, I don't want that either.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want kids. I could never be a single parent. I couldn't even be one of two. I agree. I could not be one of two. And that's even if I didn't have a disability. That's not something that I think is reasonable or realistic to expect of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the way that parents are treated is really insane. From the whole time you're alive, you're told human beings need between 8 and 9 hours of sleep every night. And then as soon as you have a kid, it's like, well, this no longer applies to you. Your mental health, your physical health, your brain health, none of that matters anymore. And it's also your fault because you decided to have kids. It's like, do we really think that is reasonable and fair to put onto people? That's not something I'm interested in. And I also wouldn't want to put my partner through that either. So I think you need at least 3 people, if not more, who are primary caregivers to a child to afford a child. First of all, let's talk about the financial cost is no longer able to be shared between 2 people. It's just not reasonable. And I think co-parenting households where you have either a divorce or a split and then the 2 parents each, have a partner, I'm just like, the financial burden is spread so much more equitably and easily between 4 people, between 3 people versus 2. From my observation.
I mean, I've had some step-parent experiences. Assuming that the step-parents are like invested.
Yes, this is assuming that all 4 parents are actively co-parenting, are actively helping, are actively contributing, whether it's financial, emotional, or household domestic labor. That is assuming all of that. Of course, there's so many step-parent and co-parenting situations where that is not the case, but I have witnessed co-parenting where that is happening, where all 4 adults are meaningfully and really invested in this kid, and I do think that the kid is better off for it, and all the parents are way more rested. And honestly, I'm not my best self when I don't have sleep and my basic needs aren't being met. And how can you be expected to be a parent?
A big part of my childhood, my parents didn't have friends. The only adults that I would see outside of school were my parents and sometimes extended family.
No.
And I also was not particularly socially adept. So I wasn't having friends really. And so I think part of how you set up a child to succeed is to expose them to a variety of social situations.
Absolutely.
And the more people that they talk to, the better of a time they're going to have. And also, something that I think about a lot is from the perspective of children's rights, functionally, parents own their kids.
Children are property, which I don't agree with, but that's just the reality. And I think that even knowing that I will treat my child as their own independent person with their own human rights, I still think I want my kids to have a extensive network of trusted adults that they can go to if they have a problem with me. And I want them to have that and to have other support systems outside of myself because I can't be everything. It's like when you're in a relationship with someone and they want to vent about an argument they had with you and they have no friends. It's like, well, who are they going to go to? And especially as you get into like teenage years and stuff, it's like you can be the perfect parent and still have a teenager who hates you or at least is annoyed. I think that's reasonable and normal and fine. And they should have someone to go to talk about that. And also, I acknowledge I'm not a perfect person. No one's perfect and I might fuck up in some way. They should have someone to go to talk about that. That's not me. Period. Full stop. I mean, I definitely want kids, and I think it's been a challenge because I feel like my whole life is basically completely on hold. I really want kids, but I can't have them right now because I don't know what's going on physically. And I think that a pregnancy would be really hard on my body.
Would you be the birthing parent?
I would like that. I've gotten some weird pushback from the cis people in my life.
I'm sure.
Because they're like, well, are you sure you want to do that? Like, wouldn't that be? And I'm like, first of all, I think that you're being caught in a trap of equating parenthood with femininity. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And second of all, I feel like you're assuming that my entire life goal, my entire personality, my desires, my wants have suddenly changed now that I've come out as trans. And that is not true. I have always wanted to give birth. I have always wanted to be pregnant. I have always wanted to have a child since basically before I could remember.
Good for you.
That has never changed. And me coming out has not changed that at all.
I mean, someone's got to want it. It could not be me.
And that's valid. I can totally understand why people don't want to. And I think it's so valid and so real. And it honestly is more logical than wanting to. Especially given your different demographics, you can have a mortality rate that's ridiculous, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's how the species continues. I mean, someone's got to want to.
Well, even if people don't want to, people still want to have unprotected sex. So I don't think that's going away. It's pretty popular of an activity.
Abortions are also pretty popular of an activity for now.
Compared to unprotected sex?
Compared to unprotected sex? No.
Not even 1% as popular. I think birth control is popular.
Yeah.
But it's still not as popular as unprotected sex, and it never will be. And I think people will continue to unintentionally have children. And even if the myth that the population is crashing were true, I would honestly not feel like that is a bad thing. Because I think it goes back to treating older people, treating disabled people as if they don't matter, as if they have zero value to society. Because I feel like a big talking point of this is, oh, well, old people are just a burden and they're going to crash our whole society because they're not economically productive.
This would be less of an issue if we had been funding Social Security.
But anyway, is it okay if I kind of go into what my life updates?
Quickly before we do that, we did tease people in the beginning with my passport.
Oh, yes. We didn't even talk about your passport. Yeah, no, talk about your passport.
So the Supreme Court just, as of time of recording in like November
of 2025,
the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration's rule that you have to have your assigned sex at birth on your passport is not discriminatory.
Yeah.
Let me read the full quote.
Read the quote.
Because it really boils my blood. Displaying passport holders' sex at birth no more offends equal protection principles than displaying their country of birth. In both cases, the government is merely attesting to historical fact without subjecting anyone to differential treatment. And theoretically, if we somehow lived in a perfectly trans-accepting world, I guess I could agree with that it wouldn't result in differential treatment, but I still wouldn't want it.
No.
And we don't live in a perfectly trans-accepting world.
Nope.
And so the idea that someone who lives their life perfectly fine as a man or perfectly fine as a woman, or even people who don't pass in all cases, won't be subjected to differential treatment because of this when they have to interact with the police is not based in reality.
Every time they travel.
Or interact with foreign governments under their assigned sex.
There's a whole bunch of places you cannot travel to.
And so for me personally, My passport doesn't expire for several more years, but not enough time for me to become a French citizen without that process becoming my 9 to 5 on top of my other 9 to 5 that I need to have in order to stay here.
Yeah.
And the idea of all of my documentation, because that's how you get documentation in a foreign country, is you present your passport. And the idea that all of my documentation being under F won't subject me to differential treatment is wild. And in addition to like dignity, because I don't have that, but for trans people who do, the idea that it's just a quote unquote statement of historical fact is insulting. Like, we can update height, we can update weight, we can update eye color, we can update hair color. Why is this different?
That is an amazing point. It's like there's so many factors on your passport that are changing throughout your life. Your eye color can change throughout your life.
Yep.
If you get cataracts or, whatever else happens, your weight fluctuates wildly throughout a lot of people's lives, and that all gets updated.
Everyone's weight has fluctuated. I'm no longer, for example, 20 pounds.
Yes, true. That's an amazing point. It's like, well, if you had a passport as a child and now you're an adult, well, it's just stating historical fact to list my weight as 60 pounds. And, well, we should just keep it like that because it's historical fact. And also, I think we need to take a step back from this issue and think about, like, what is the purpose of a passport? The purpose of a passport is not to state historical fact. It is to reflect current reality. And the current reality for you is not F.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not it's strictly M, it's definitely not F. And, like, for anyone to think that it would be F is just a fallacy. Like, it doesn't reflect reality. And even if we were talking to these people who say that they're so concerned with national security, do they really think that it's beneficial to national security to misrepresent people's gender markers and create confusion and create delays and create unnecessary chaos at border crossings? Is that what they really want?
I'm not a person who's the most in danger of this, but I am concerned of my 5 years from now future. Like, what would it be like to go back to the United States? Will I be able to see my family? And then would I be able to come back to France? And what will it be like to, quote unquote, update my gender marker to F everywhere in France?
And then potentially based on other decisions we don't know about yet, you might have to then go back to M or some secret third option, which used to be available. I don't believe X is available anymore.
Not in the US.
Which is crazy.
My trajectory would be I convert back to F, finish getting a French citizenship, and then convert everything back to M. M as in male, not M as in EM.
Yes. No, yeah, if that's not clear to everyone, when we say F or M, we're talking about female and male gender markers on a passport. And that is just so much extra work for basically nothing. And I also want to remind people that when passports were originally invented, they didn't even have gender markers because that wasn't considered, I guess, information that was necessary for identifying someone. It was their first and last name. It was their physical characteristics, hair color, eye color, height, and that was it. There was no gender marker until the 1970s when men started wearing their hair long and it was a moral panic and they started adding gender markers onto passports and driver's licenses so that I guess people wouldn't get confused. It just feels so unnecessary to even have a gender marker. I don't really get the purpose of that. Like, what is the purpose of having a gender marker at all?
It's to know which TSA officer should be the one to sexually assault you.
Yeah, the answer is none of them.
Mm-hmm.
Every time some shit happens with passports, it just feels like another way to oppress a new group of people. It never feels like it benefits anybody.
Mm-hmm. That's my soapbox.
I'm really glad you brought it up because I think it's important to talk about.
I'm glad you think it's important to talk about because most major news publications didn't.
No, I didn't know about this until you told me. I've never heard this.
My mom didn't know about this until I told her. And then she Googled it and then she was like, there's nothing. I mean, this was several days ago, almost a week ago. There might be stuff now in 2026 when you're listening to this. But in the days after, there wasn't anything in the New York Times, from CNN. There was a lot of coverage of the fact that the Supreme Court decided not to revisit gay marriage, which I'm so happy for.
I guess.
But it would be nice if we got the same coverage for every trans person being fucked over.
Yeah, and this also opens you up to some pretty extreme dangers if you travel even through certain countries. So if you need to travel somewhere and you have a layover in Dubai, you cannot go there.
Correct.
With this gender marker issue.
It's also a way, a couple weeks ago, I had 2 trans friends reach out to me being like, so what's the application process for getting a master's degree in a foreign country? Like, the fact that it's passport specifically fucks over people who are trying to leave. It just puts another hell dimension on the process of applying for a visa, finding a place to live, etc., in another country.
It's like, welcome to the United States, where we deport people who want to be here, and the people who don't want to be here can't leave because of our fucked up passport rules.
Yup.
So, yay, nobody's happy.
Yup.
Awesome. That's fucked up.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm done for real. It's your turn.
Good Sports Podcast, where everything is gonna be alright.
And unfortunately, that's where we had to leave you, folks. This episode got a little bit too long, so we had to split it into 2 parts. So tune in next week for the continuation and finding out what happened to Hayes at the doctor's office.
Thank you for listening to Good Sports Podcast. I've been Hayes.
And I've been Em, and this has continued to not be a sports podcast. Remember to follow us on Tumblr at goodsportspodcast.tumblr.com.
Our asks are open, so drop your opinions and you may be featured on a future episode.
Our podcast art was done by Ellis. You can follow them on Instagram at digitalfuture.cat.
Love us, hate us, let us know by leaving a review and rating us 5 stars on your podcast app of choice.
And remember to always be a good sport.